I want you to know. Ready? All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome once again to the Different Echelon podcast. This is your main man, Darius Nolan. Today we are having how can I say, a historic moment today in the Different Echelon podcast. This is, as you can see, my very handsome older brother, older version of myself, Mr. Eric Nolan. Once again, he is not a stranger to a Different Echelon podcast. We've decided to switch seats today, and he's actually going to throw the questions at me and interview me, which will be very, very interesting. But before we get into it, just want to say hello, Eric. How you doing?
I'm well, sir. How about yourself?
Very good. Thank you for calling me, sir. Before we get into the questionnaire, just want to kind of talk quickly about current events, things that are going on right now. As you know, today is Thursday. On Tuesday, there was the presidential debate, the first presidential debate between the current president, Donald J. Trump, and his challenger, Mr. Joe Biden, former vice president under the Obama administration. That has actually been a very big topic, hot topic. I believe at every water cooler in America and probably some abroad as well. Did you watch?
I did watch. And I watched all of it, and then I taped it.
Well, you seem quite dedicated. But what did you get out of it?
You know what? I got out of it trouble.
Mm.
I got trouble out of it, and I was more so troubled by, I think, the disregard. Number 45 is who he is. And I was hoping that he would kind of reel it in for the sake of, a conversation between the two of them. But I just felt troubled after I watched the debate, and honestly felt a little sad. But then I had to snap back into people are who they are, and sometimes it's hard for them to to switch over into something else. And then also, we live in a society whereas his behavior is acceptable.
Right.
His behavior is acceptable because of his white privilege. That's really what it is. Because a person that looked like you and I, and people have said it a million times over and over, President Barack Obama could not have done that, but he has a past because of his white privilege and his so-called status. I believe that Joe Biden knew it, but he even himself may have been caught off guard by the disregard and just the badgering and the bullying, and then bringing in his son Hunter, and this, it was troubling, very troubling.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. I actually did not see it live. I did not watch any of it on Tuesday night, but I watched some of it yesterday, and I probably got through the first segment, and then I had to cut it off. Because if I may be honest, I do believe that there is a certain behavior that comes with a certain position. And it doesn't matter how you feel about your opponent. It doesn't matter how passionate you are. You still have to conduct yourself in a way that is exemplary of your position. And the disappointment that I have is that in my years, I'm only 41, so I've only probably been under maybe 6 presidents. And I've never seen a president act like that. And it's funny because I talked to several people who are my age or better, and had this behavior been going on in the 80s or the 90s, They would not even made it past the primary. So, like you said, I do feel like this behavior is acceptable now, partly because we have our so-called commander in chief behaving in this way. And I don't care who doesn't like what I have to say. I'm telling the truth. So to me, the disappointment, when I say disappointment, of course, a tiger can't change his stripes. But this the disappointment is you want to look up to a person that has achieved probably the most important position in the world. You know, America is the most powerful country in the world, but and so you want to look up to that person to some in some way, to some degree. But ultimately, I do feel like we are in trouble, and something needs to change very quickly because I do find him to be quite divisive. And unfortunately, his opponents during his primary, they felt the need to get down in the mud and fight with him. And you cannot beat someone at their own game. So unfortunately, we're here now, and I just pray and I just believe that something is going to change because we are a country that is divided. We have never been more divided in my lifetime, and I just feel like we're going backwards and not forward. But I do
Yeah,
want to go ahead.
and I just want to say this about that. One thing that you said that America is the most powerful country, but it's difficult for you to operate in your power when your leader is just out of whack, when he's out of touch. It's just very difficult.
Mhm.
It's like um with music, with your band, you
Mhm.
playing for choirs. It
Mhm.
doesn't matter how powerful the choir is or the band is, but if the conductor is out of sync, it cannot produce the sound. It
Correct.
cannot operate in its full power.
Yeah,
You know
good analogy. That's a good analogy.
that's what's very troubling as well. You
Right,
know.
right. Yeah. So the floor is yours, brother. Let's go.
All right. So, first of all, brother, thank you so much for inviting me to do this.
My
One
pleasure.
of my goals
Aspirations.
was to be a talk show host, right? So
Congratulations.
off of social media, right? One of my many aspirations. So, I'm grateful for the opportunity, right? I'll take this. Your platform can come in many different forms. But
Right.
so I'm going to talk, uh, definitely going to talk to you. I already know who you are. I have a good sense of who you are, you know, so many memories about you. And because we are so many years apart, I just remember the news of you, of a baby coming, then our mother going to the hospital, then our mother bringing you home, and then I forgot, and the name that I gave you.
Of course.
So
Of
yeah,
course.
yes, right. So, but anyway, let's talk about who is Darius Kendall Nolan. Explain to your audience who you are.
All right. Well, first of all, again, thank you, Darius Kendall Nolan. So most people don't know my middle name is Kendall, and I do sign my name Darius K Nolan. But who I am, first of all, I fear God. We were raised in a Christian household, and most people maintain their upbringing, like the standard of their upbringing. I don't care what it is. Most people maintain it. There are some that go they stray away or they go into a different direction. But I have maintained that. So first of all, I'm a God-fearing man. Number two, um, I think I'm intelligent. I think I'm very, very, how can I say, I'm very sensitive to other people as well. I try to consider other people's feelings and how it come across. I believe I'm a loving person, but I'm also one that can be emotional at times, and sometimes I could hold a grudge longer than I probably should, and but that's one of my I would call that a tragic flaw. But in addition to my basic personality, I am a medical professional. I have been in medicine since 2004. I work in the GI field. For those of you who don't know, I deal with colons and anything in the GI tract. I'm also a musician, and with that has very many arms. I'm a
Well, you're going into my area now. Like, all that's going to come.
oh, okay. Well, yeah, who
So,
I am. So I did.
so, so let me just cut you off to ask you this. So, if there was, uh, if there was something that defined you, right? What could you say it was? And it could just be one word. It should be a sentence. What defines you?
Consideration.
Consideration.
I
Okay.
try to consider the next person because I think, and that's kind of one of the reasons why I began this because I feel like one of the things that hurts us as a country or as a people overall is that we don't consider the other person. We're
Mm,
always looking out for ourselves, and sometimes you do have to be selfish. Like, don't get me wrong, but a lot of trouble and strife can be curtailed if you would just consider the other person. Excuse me,
right.
sorry, I apologize. Can I get this for you? What can I do to help you? And I do believe that the most powerful thing in the world is love, So that's the most powerful tool that we have. And unfortunately, we don't have enough of it. Oh, it's not exemplified enough. So that's the word
Okay.
I felt consideration.
All right. So, consideration is something that describes you. What is the greatest influence in your life? And it could be a who, it could be a what, it could be, one or the other. It could be both. What is the greatest influence in your life? Who is the greatest influence in your life?
Um, you know, I would if I had to choose the greatest influence of my life. I know you want me to say you, but if
It's all
you,
right if you don't.
no, no, seriously, the greatest influence of my life is our father. Um,
Okay.
and I say that because I always admired one thing about him over a lot of other things. It was his structure. He was very organized and very structured. You had already left the house. You were well an adult. But I would watch him iron his clothes for the week on Sunday night. And I'm saying to myself, there's no way in the world I would take the time out to do all of that. But he tried to teach me, and I do have some of those qualities now. It's funny because my life has transitioned in so many ways, but I try to always be organized. And I do believe that organization is the key to success. So if you're not organized and you're trying to do something, you're probably going to miss a step which will cause you to fail and not succeed. So he was always very organized and structured in everything that he did. You remember him as a choir director and stuff like that, and you shared with me some of the memories of the rehearsals and the respect that he garnered.
Preparation.
Right, yeah, and I remember as a little boy watching him at the record player too. You know,
Yeah. Before technology became what it is.
right,
Mm,
right. Moving the needle back because, and I remember our aunt Betty in New York. Hey Aunt Betty, she they were doing a song for the choir anniversary by the Hawkins, and there was a word in the song, and the word was in part. And she said for some reason he couldn't make out that word, and he stayed there. And he moved that needle until he got it. I don't know how long it took him. This is a secondhand story, but he moved the needle until he got the word, and that just took like dedication on his end. He had stick to itiveness, and he wouldn't stop until he got that word. But all that being said, he's my greatest influence, and because he was so structured, and I feel like if you have structure, you'll be successful.
yeah, that's true. But sometimes I felt like he had too much structure when it came to me. But me and you are born in two different generations. I was like, whoo, it's a
Well,
whole lot going on here.
you're the older one, so
Right.
you were the trial and error child. By the time I
Yeah.
came along, he already knew how to do it. So
Right.
it impressed me. One more thing I'll share is you and I are different because we not only grew up in different generations, we grew up in different environments. So you
Right.
Brooklyn for the most part. A lot of my childhood, as far as my teenage years, were in South Carolina. So I had to get up and I had to rake the yard. I had to cut the grass. Listen to this. I had to push broom sweep that long driveway at our parents' house.
Well, Darius, I mean, I'm glad you brought that up because I thought I got the brunt of it because I know I'm not gonna go into my chores, but I know on a Friday night there were certain things I had to do,
Uh-huh.
and do not let that garbage man come. And that garbage was not at the front of that gate. That was definitely, that's before you had to, like, now in New York, you have to take it out on the curb. Back then, I think you had to push them to the front of your gate. They would just reach over and take it out.
Right.
But I'm glad that you said that because, right, different place, different time. But our father was who he was. He was structured. He stayed the same. He didn't bend. He didn't fold. Really, he was like this quiet storm, a peculiar personality, but you got it. You don't have to laugh. I'm going to say I think you were his favorite, but I'll take that. You were the baby. I was gone.
You mommy's favorite, so
Yeah, right. So right, we throw that around, right? But honestly, I felt the love from both of them. I
right.
did.
No doubt, no doubt. No doubt.
Um, and let me say this, right? And I gotta add, and Daddy loved the Hawkins. Anything they came out with, he was in love with it. So that was definitely one of his favorites.
Right.
But you said something that leads to another question that I have for you. So let's talk about growing up in South Carolina versus New York, right? And so just to paint the picture, right? I'll let you talk about your transition from New York to South Carolina and what was the experience like.
So I remember as a child coming to South Carolina almost every summer. And I just remember mostly a lot of my cousins being at our auntie's house. And because, not to get into a lot of detail, but a lot of my cousins were my second cousins, but we were like the same age because I was born, late to our parents. So, my cousins, we would go to my aunt's house or our aunt's house, but it'd be their grandmother, if that makes any sense. Anyway, I
Mhm.
remember like coming down, but I didn't know a whole lot about, South Carolina. So I remember coming down here and I just knew that it was completely different from Brooklyn. You're talking
Yes,
about city versus country. You're talking about lights everywhere in every corner to like vast darkness. And
vast.
and I say this, and this is not to be derogatory, but it's true. Like I remember I've never seen so many white people in one area in my life until I got here. Living in Brooklyn at the time, I only saw white people when we went to a Mets game or to see the Knicks play.
Very different now.
Yeah, right. We talked
Very
about
different.
that in the other broadcast, but so that was an adjustment for me. In fact, I was the only black child on my bus. So a school bus full of, kids, maybe 35, 40 kids, I don't know. I'm the only black child. And I remember I was the only black, let's see, there were two black families in our neighborhood. And my mother's, who's still alive, her neighborhood probably has well over, I don't know, seems like a million homes, but there were only two black families. So it's my family or our family and the Jacobs. And there was a girl there who I became friends with, but she didn't even ride the bus. Her parents took her to school. So yeah, so I was the only kid. What were you gonna say?
So let me ask you a question. So that was a big transition
Yeah,
for
for
you,
sure.
right?
Yep,
Because
yep,
I remember you going to school in New York. So our
yep.
mother walked you to school. She took you to school,
Hmm.
right? So what was it like for you going from being dropped off by your mother to getting on the school bus and nobody looked like you?
Well, I mean, you're young. I was, early teenager, so it was kind of exciting actually. I wasn't frightened. I was excited. You know, our parents kind of like sheltered. I'll say more so me than you. So I didn't really feel a lot of like I feel a lot of like like racial hostility per se. Maybe to it because I was so young, but I didn't experience like any racism until I got to high school. But in middle school, it was just like, oh man, here's Darius, this is my friend. I won't forget, there was this guy that a white boy, Chad Burbacher, who became my friend, and he lived around the corner from me, and we played basketball every day. So I was excited. It was fun. He went on to become a pastor of a huge church here in the area. They were from Cincinnati, Ohio, and his father actually runs the church here in the Somerville area where our mother lives. And my friend Chad actually runs a church, I think, back up in Cincinnati, but they're big men, but they were nice Christian people. So they
Nice.
would come over, play basketball. They fed us peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, like you see on TV. And
Right.
it's happening to me. Go ahead.
So let me ask you this. So um I'm gonna ask two questions about that. So with that being said, um, what is your opinion of race relationships in 2020? And granted, that was sometime, and I'm sure in the early 90s, right?
Mhm.
What is your opinion of race relationships now?
Um, I don't necessarily have a problem with it. Um, I do know that we have evolved in the sense that you see a lot more black and white relationships. And you see, I mean, you can see a lot of different types of relationships, Asian to Hispanic. You can see black to, I don't know, Mengwanese, it doesn't matter. But me personally, I feel like as long as you don't lose the sense of who you are, within your marriage, because I was married and I know it's very easy to lose yourself, even if you're within the same race. So it's important that, me as a black man, that I would not lose myself in marrying somebody else. And also, too, I'm a man. I think most of the times women kind of like cater to their husbands' side of things, so they will more so lose themselves. But me personally, I think it's okay as long as you can handle it. Because again, going back to our earlier conversation about, the state of America, you know, I don't know if you get the same kind of looks now that you did in the 60s if you have, a person and we'll just call it a black guy with a white girl or vice versa on your arm. But you do get looks. And I think the interesting thing about it is that I live in the South, and, you know, you'll see more interracial dating. I guess it's more accepted in bigger cities, such as the North and specifically out West. Like we have a mutual friend, he's really your friend, but he's out in San Francisco. So, it's probably more prevalent out there. It's probably more accepted out there
Well,
than down.
you know, but I want to break in and say this, but it's interesting in terms of acceptance, but I don't know whether when I come to the South, I see more of interracial relationships
No, I'm not
as
saying you
opposed
do.
to the North.
That's
Huh?
not what I said.
Okay.
I say you see it, but you see it in everywhere. I don't care if you're in
Mm.
Chicago or if you're in Houston, Texas. But I'm saying like the acceptance and how you're treated is probably different. You know what I'm saying? Because it's a metropolis in say DC, for example.
Mm.
You see any array of race mixing.
Right.
But
I wasn't saying that you said that, but the point I was trying to get to is this. Okay, so you see it, right?
right,
I would kind of think, and probably not really think, but you see it, but it seems like if it's more so accepted, and correct me if I'm wrong, in the North and the West as opposed to the South, that you would see less of it in the South. You know what I'm saying? Because it's something people frown upon. Maybe people don't want to do it, but in New York, please, who cares? We're all mixed in here together. Let's just do it. So that's interesting to me.
well, I think that people are going to do what they are going to do. Shout out to anybody who does what they want to do. A
Hmm.
lot of relationships are forced. I'm talking about, with a significant other. They're forced because of the parents. But
Mm.
within, the daughter doesn't want to be with this guy. I don't care what color he is. The son doesn't want to be with this woman, but it's all because, mom and dad are paying for the wedding. Mom and dad have this, fictitious heritage to uphold or this generational thing to uphold. They don't
Mm-hmm.
I mean, see a lot where forget about race, where if a person's family is wealthy, they are, as they say, fit to be tied if their daughter is going to marry a guy that they feel like is not meet that level. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
That social level or that financial level. So, I just think that when it comes down to it, you have to be with who you want to be with, but you also have to realize in this current climate that if you decide to be with a person outside your race, be ready for some backlash. And then if you, dare to have children that are biracial, you got to be ready for that. Because the kinky hair or the skin tone. And I know it's more so now. It's not like they're aliens, but what I'm saying is, kids are brutal. I don't care if you're completely white or completely black or completely Asian. They're gonna make fun of you. That's what kids do. So you have to be ready, for all of that. But I think
Yeah, yeah, and sometimes they can be more accepting than adults, and because there is a growing population of biracial children, it's
right.
not like, oh my God, who are you? Like, it's kind of like it's happening. But I want to ask you this: so, how do you think your life would be different had you stayed in New York
Um,
throughout your teen years and then your early adult life? How do you think your life would be different? What would be different about Darius?
I think that from a career standpoint, I think I would have really followed a musical path. I remember growing up in Brooklyn, New York, which is, as far as I'm concerned, the greatest city in the world.
Yeah, yeah.
That we were around so many great musicians all the time in our home church. Rita Lindsay played the organ, and she was like tremendous. Like people talk about Twinkie Clark, but I mean, Rita was bad, and
She did her thing.
she did a thing. Like we had even some musicians that came out of our home church that went on to play for professional groups and bands. I mean, Jason Henderson, played for Kyle Walker. When I was coming up,
Sandra Elliott is doing her thing.
yeah, right, right. She
Yeah.
writes a lot of music, and I think she's in North Carolina.
She's
Uh,
in North Carolina.
yeah,
Remember, Doreen Figueroa always came
yeah,
through. She's a part of us. She's a part of us. And then her daughters who've gone
right,
on to do professional work. So
right,
yeah, we had,
right.
and then we had a host of people that, because the church world was like one big family back then, at that time it was nothing for Hezekiah to bring his group to our church, and that was a big deal, and some names that may have not been so popular, but they were recording artists, but the influence was strong. Yeah.
And I remember you know um us, like you say, fellowshipping with other churches. We will go to New Life with Doreen and Bishop Eric, pastor, and I was always enamored by this organist they had. At the time I was young, and I think I played with the drums. Every boy wants to play the drums in church because it's an aggressive instrument. So, we can exert ourselves, and our energy. But anyway, I remember like the organ at that time. It was like most churches just had an organ and a drum set. I think we had a piano too, but
We had all three.
guitar sometimes. But anyway, the organ was like the dominant instrument, and it's the dominant instrument in Brooklyn church music anyway. So this guy was playing the organ, and I just remember like his foot like dancing on the pedals like that. Bam, 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 bam. I was like, God, man, that is tremendous. And I think later on you and I talked one time, and you were like, Darius, I think that was James Hall. And I said, oh man, that's great. And then, time went on and I moved here and everything. And he became, had a song called God is in Control. While I'm talking about him, today is his birthday. So if you're watching, James, happy birthday.
Happy birthday, James. Blessings.
But anyway, he's my favorite artist of all time because living here in South Carolina, I missed that Brooklyn sound. And when he came out with God is in Control, I was like, oh my God. I remember when I called you, you were living in Atlanta. I was like, man, there's a song. This thing is incredible. And I remember as a kid, I would sit right in front of the TV and just be enamored with how they looked on stage. And at the time, the late great Melvin Crispell was playing the organ, Eddie Hayward was playing the drums, and they were smashing. Quiet
And,
had Ascot.
and everything about that song was so Brooklyn.
Right,
Everything about
right,
that song.
right,
When
right,
we saw them on TV, they looked so Brooklyn. It was
right,
just, it was like the Brooklyn way. It was
right,
everything about
right.
them.
Right. So anyway, I think, if I stayed in New York, I would have been like a world famous musician by now. So, I kind of always, even like with what I do now and how I play, I was never trained to play the organ. I learned that here in South Carolina. And, I remember in high school, I befriended a couple guys that were, their father was a prominent preacher. He still is a prominent preacher in this area, Bishop Allen, Apostle Allen Simmons. But his sons, Alan Jr., Chris, and John or Jonathan, we were all classmates. And I just began to go to the church, and our church here would fellowship with them, and they had a unique sound. Their chief musician was Darren Schuler, and when I met him, I realized that he had trained in some in New Jersey. So it kind of familiarized some of the chords and movements were like reminded me of New York. So he gave me I think he gave me 3 lessons, and he charged me $20 a lesson. And our father, in typical Deacon Frank Nolan style, made me pay for it myself. So I had my money. Yeah, he wasn't paying because he was like, "Hey, you want to do it? You pay for it." So I paid for it, and he gave me 3 lessons. I think the last lesson, or what would have been the fourth lesson, I didn't have the money, so I didn't call Darren. I said, "Hey, man, I'm not gonna make it today," and I never went back, and I just began to just play and our dad bought me as a gift. He bought me a $50 keyboard that was probably only as long as my forearm. It was short, and it was from the pawn shop, and I just played it. And I played it every single day, and I stuck with it. And then when I got enough money myself, I bought a bigger keyboard. I had a job at a record store, CD store, and I would see a lot of musicians come in and out. And I got a key. I didn't have a keyboard at the time, and these people, they heard me playing at this church, and they were like, "Hey, man, we got a group. You want to play?" I was like, "Sure." So it was there was out of Ridgeville, South Carolina, called Perfect Peace. Eric Humans was the musician lead, and I bought a keyboard and I played. And our mother, and I'm sure she's watching this. If she's not, she'll remember this. I was still living at home. I was probably like 18 or so, or maybe 18 or 19, and I would just go over the music, and she would come sing songs. She was like, "Okay, you're gonna play at church, so I'm gonna sing, and you play." And I would try to catch the key.
She rendered her soprano voice.
Yeah, her soprano voice. Yeah, mommy always had the energy, so she would sing and I would play. And then when it got late, I would still play. I would have on headphones and all that. And it was always important for me to make our dad proud. So
Right.
yeah.
Now, let me ask you something about that. Right. So you were playing, you were under the influence. Now you played for at that time, or you were going to, let's just say, the Apostolic Church, right?
Right. Right.
There's fire in their music, but also it can be I don't want to say stifling, but there are limits to where you're going to go with that sound.
Right.
In other words, you're not going to, you're going to sound holy, right?
Right.
Do you believe that when you have to work within a box as a musician, let's just say being in something like a church, not only the Holiness Church, because there are other churches, but do you believe that some places will allow you to grow as a musician? That's the question.
They don't allow you to grow?
Right.
Yeah, so I actually experienced some hindrances at our church. We had a musician that I think he became a little bit like jealous of my progress. And so he didn't allow me. Well, first of all, I think that he was kind of limited in what he could do. So he wouldn't allow me to, branch out and be more productive or use my imagination. Like I've always had an imagination in music. That's why I believe it's a gift from God. Like even to this day, my sight reading is terrible. Whereas if you stick a sheet music in front of a musician, they can like play it right there and play it on at the Grammys. I would have to study it for about at least an hour or so. But anyway, I believe people can stifle you, and when you're young and you have exuberance, and then a person that's supposed to be your mentor is not allowing you to grow, then it's discouraging to you. And so, and I remember, and I'm a, hit some buttons here like Friday night service. Like, Eric, we went to church all the time. Like you probably in church more than I was, but we have Friday night service and we didn't have a musician.
I didn't do Friday nights too often, but all day Sunday.
Yeah, all day Sunday, right? But we have Friday night service here. And I remember I wanted to play, and I went to our pastor and I said, Pastor, I want to play the organ or the piano tonight. He said, you know how to play? I said, a little bit. And he said, well, okay, come on. We don't have a musician. Because the main musician had a job out of town or something like that. And so what freed me up, I have to go back a little bit, is that I played the drums, of course, and then another family moved to our area from Beaufort, and their son played the drums. So I said, well, we can kill two birds with one stone. I'll just move over to the keyboard. So anyway, that night, the pastor got up and he said, congregation, we have a new keyboard player. He's going to play, and we're going to get behind him. And the song that I think our mother sang the song, Put Your Time In, Payday is coming after a while. I think she did that because she knew I knew it. So that was like my first song I ever played at that church.
So she had an inside, huh? So she
put
a boy out there, huh?
She didn't want me to, to sound crazy. So she sang that song. But anyway,
all devotional songs are basically the same. But go ahead.
Right, I couldn't mess that up. So anyway, I played it in church. And who later became, one of my good friends, Corey Glover, he played the drums and he would always encourage me. I can honestly say like he's a big part of me moving forward in music, because he made it easy for me. He played the drums and he was like, come on, man, we're gonna play, we're gonna practice. And we practice anywhere because of the stifling behavior of some of the saints. They didn't allow us to go into church and practice on the organ. I couldn't even play the organ because it was like a porcelain, statue that if you touch it, it was going to break. So I played this, but anyway, it all worked out because I just stuck with it. And that's one of the things that I always encourage younger musicians, just stick with it. Like it doesn't matter. Get yourself a keyboard and practice and invest in your art, and you'll be successful. So that was a little more than 20 years ago. And here I am. I always say I'll never be broke because as long as I have fingers and I have the heart, I'll always have a place. I mean, now I'm a music minister at a church in James Island, South Carolina. So, I played a lot of churches here, and God has been with me the whole time, And so it's just very, very gratifying to be able to hear music and then articulate it, stuff like that. So.
All right, so great. That's good. So I want to move the interview on, right? So let's talk about this. So what do you get from? I don't want to say church music because there's really no such thing. It's a church sound. I don't want to know. Can't say church music. What do you get from gospel music? Put it this way. Tell me what do you get from gospel music that you may not get from R&B, or what do you find in R&B that you don't find in gospel music?
Well, they're different. First of all, every great singer comes out of the church, Black singer. So, I can start naming names, but I won't. But I will name a couple. Aretha Franklin, the greatest female singer of all time. And the second greatest female singer is Whitney Houston. And because the church allows you to get up there at 5 or 6 years old and sing, or
sound any kind of way.
And they're gonna say, all right, baby, all right, baby, you're good, knowing that you wrong. But they give you an opportunity. And then sometimes the church gets mad because once you get to a professional level, you leave the church. You never come back. Or you'll do a concert or sing a song, but you want a $1,500 honorarium. And for those of you who know what an honorarium is, because that's a church lingo, it's like a fee.
Right.
So,
And I want to say this about church. It really is a good place to learn how to sing, how to be a musician, how to do all of these different things, because like you said, you kind of get a pat on the back. And yeah, you have those who are not so supportive because they kind of wish it was their child if they're doing
right,
it. And some people just mean spirited, right?
right.
But however, it does offer you a platform, and I think the way we're taught to sing and play in church makes us very capable of doing it outside,
That's
because we understand parts, we understand diction, we understand octaves, we understand being flat, you
mhm.
know. Um, um, and it's true. Well, for me, I can always tell when someone sang in church. Like when I first heard Fantasia sing, I said, she certainly sings in church.
But Fantasia is the obligatory church singer that sings R&B.
Right. I said she sings in church. I said I can guarantee you somebody in her family is the pastor or something, because she sounds like she always has the microphone.
And I want to get back to your question about the difference in the two musics. I remember when I first started playing, how can I say this, non-church music, R&B music, just a couple of years ago. Um, I was looking for the music to be a lot more complicated.
Mm,
It was, but it was actually easy in comparison. So if you're learning music, we'll just throw out some artists like Marvin Sapp or Israel or Ty Tribbett or again James Hall, which is a whole other class. But anyway, you learn that stuff, and then you have to learn like Michael Jackson, or you learn Bruno Mars or Amy Winehouse. That R&B music is so simple that it's
mm,
very easy for a gospel musician to overthink it. Because just to get like in depth, like in R&B and gospel music, you have a lot of chords that are
mm.
of the song. In R&B, they're just sound effects. There are not many chords in the song per se. So
And can I add to say this one also? Remember, a big part of singing in church, you had to be able to change keys
right,
and a couple of times, and then sometimes you had to go back to where you started. So
right,
it was definitely a good. I could definitely see, and even if you're not so much a singer, your ear is so sharp to what's going on. You
right,
know,
right, exactly. You're astute to what's going on, and
right?
so the approach is a little bit different. I think gospel music we tend to overplay.
Mm,
And then in R&B, you have to let like the mood settle. You have to let the song breathe. I remember watching the documentary on the late Michael Jackson, This Is It. The keyboard player was playing too much. He goes, no, you have to let it simmer. You have to let it simmer. Kept using the word simmer.
mm.
And so that's one of the biggest differences, in my opinion, between hard church chords and gospel chords versus just sweet sounds, sound effects and R&B music, that kind of
And
thing.
I, and I want to say this too, and I think we also have to realize too with church music, two things go on. So there is the anointing that overtakes people, right? But
Right.
then there's also the other part of it that, because the kind of church settings that we came from, there was a strong emotional part to it. So you kind of like play it into people's emotions, like it was aggressive. You had to like get people going. So um, that was also a big part of it. But I want to ask you. Um, I think it's a good way to start to kind of segue out of the interview, which I appreciate everything that you said. And I'm sure those listening feel the same way too. Who would you say, and I think that you may have already said who you think is the greatest singer, but who is personally your greatest, your favorite singer? I know you said Aretha is the greatest, but who's your favorite and what influences you the most, that you get something from this person that you don't get from anybody else when you hear them? And it doesn't have to just be a singer. It could be a musician. It could be somebody that plays an instrument.
So I'll do both. My favorite singer and the greatest singer is Aretha Franklin. That's why I say she's the greatest, because she's my favorite.
Mhm.
And I say that because she speaks to me. She is able to do everything. She can do
Yeah.
church. She can do R&B. She can do soul. She can fiddle with jazz, which jazz is a whole different world, but she can play around with it. And one thing that a lot of people may not know about her is that she's also a pianist. She was also a pianist. So I think the last time I saw her play piano, aside from like a home video that somebody released, during her last days, she played the piano at the Thanksgiving football game. The Detroit Lions played somebody, I forgot, like maybe 2 or 3 years ago. She played and sang at the same time. A lot of people don't know that. But she to me is the greatest influence. I've not heard a bad Aretha Franklin song in my whole life.
Yeah.
Greatest singer, male singer, is Marvin Gaye. And I heard Marvin Gaye sing after the dance. Somebody was able to strip the music out and have him sing just a cappella, and he sounded like an electronic instrument. So
Wow.
you're thinking like, how can this person with such a great ear hit the notes precisely, right on top of things? Amazing. And so, he's the greatest. But piano players, or musicians, there's a guy by the name of John Peters who, and I look at it this way. Two guys actually. I have to say John Peters and Robert Glasper, who's a jazz pianist. John Peters is more so gospel, but I say that because again, those are my two favorite genres. But they play the things that I wish I could play. So when I hear them, I'm like, I'm going to try that. And it's just everything about the voicing, the runs, the approach, everything about it is just, great. And I have to, take this time to shout out my band, the Lavish Sound. Um, that band was actually birthed out of, I was supposed to be in a band, and then the person that asked me to be in it didn't do what they were supposed to do. So I just kind of did it. And, someone very close to me encouraged me to start it. But I think what's interesting about the members of the band, the original members, I could say, we all kind of play in church. So we play in church and we sing in church, but we do a lot of out of church performances. So it gives me a chance to be creative, kind of keep that church base or those chords and the approach, but then play R&B music. You know what I'm saying? And around here in Charleston, especially, we have a lot of great musicians. But what's interesting is that we can see each other in the church house and then see each other, in the juke joint. And it's fine. I mean, it is what it is. I'm not gonna call any names. I don't want to expose anyone. But I think it's great that we can be well rounded in that way. And I just think that music is probably the most important tool. It's something that's a language that everybody understands. And it's amazing. It brings people together. I don't care what your background is or your ethnicity or your religious affiliation or where you're from geographically. It'll bring you around because it'll bring you together because everyone's heard what the world needs now is love, sweet love. Everyone's heard what's going on. Everyone's heard, you know, living on the prayer. Excuse me. Everyone's heard those songs. You know what I'm saying? Or We Are the World. By Quincy Jones. So it's one of those things, man. So I'm thankful for music. I know you have to go because you have something better to do. But I just want to say that I appreciate this opportunity. We're going to do another one. This is just volume 2. And I just want to say I wanted to talk about too why I chose the name A Different Echelon.
Right, and that's good, and that's a good way to close out. But before you go into that, I do want to thank you for the opportunity to do this. This is just the way of the world now.
Yeah.
With women, with StreamYarding, with IG and live, Facebook and live. So thank you for the opportunity.
You too. Shout out to you.
Yeah, let's just talk in a matter of 20 seconds of why you chose this name.
So I chose his name because my favorite rapper, hip hop, is on Nas. Nas has a song, and he referenced I'm on a different. He said echelon, but it's echelon. I think he did it with words. And I looked up the word echelon or echelon, and it's a different level. And I've always considered myself to be on a different level, not a better level or higher level, but a different level. the way I think and the way I approach life is different from anybody else. So that's why the people that are in my circle, I appreciate them because they take the time to understand this is just Darius. So that's why I chose the name a different echelon because that's who I am. I'm on another level, a different level, and a different mode. So I keep that. That's who I am, and that's who I'm going to be. So that's just the way it is.
Well, Darius, that's great. Thank you for the for really for all of this.
Mhm.
You forgot to mention that I exposed you to music first, but that's all right.
Yeah,
You know,
I knew you were going to say it. That's why I knew
you know,
you.
I always bought music. Listen, I always had to have some music in the house, right?
For real, no, you always did have music. You turned me on to the people that I still, musically idolize today. You turned me on to the Hawkins. You turned me on to Thomas Whitfield. You turned me on
Yeah,
to Fire. You turned me on to a lot of people. You yourself were a musician at one point. We had a
still
big
is.
piano. Yeah, right. Big piano in the house that you would play, and you play for groups and stuff at church and whatnot, and you're a big influence to me in that way. So I had the motivation to do it, and I'm looking forward to something that we're working on for Christmas time. So
Yes, yes, that'll be something great. And it's still in me. I just, I think I'm doing other things in life.
mm,
Writing this, putting that together. Raising kids at this point.
yeah,
So
yeah.
just
Your stars too. Your daughter, she's the next one.
yes, yes, she's the next one. So she's on her way with her music lesson and her talent show performances.
Yeah,
So
so
it's all good. But I thank you so much for this time and
thank you for doing it. I think you'll take a time out.
yeah,
I'll go. So, once again, everybody, thank you so much for tuning into a different echelon podcast. Please make sure you hit that subscribe button. Please make sure you follow me on Facebook, Darius Nolan. I also have another Facebook page, a different echelon as well. Please look out for new music from the Lavish Sound. And please look out for a Christmas CD that we're about to do. I say CD, I'm old, but a Christmas release that we're about to do that's going to feature a lot of the
how about
local
project?
project. That's the word. Christmas project. That's going to feature a lot of the local musicians and singers in the area, and we'll have some guest appearances from Queens, New York, and some other people. So thank you so much, Eric. Love you, man. I'm
Love
gonna
you too, little bro.
Yeah, all right, all right. I'm going to talk to you later. But anyway, everyone, please have a blessed night. Hope you enjoyed it. If you have any suggestions for topics, please email me at DariusNolan28 @gmail, or just hit me in the DMs on a different echelon on IG or Darius Nolan Facebook, any of my platforms. Once again,
Yes,
you all, thank you. You want to have the last
thank you.
words? Go ahead.
All right, Dad. No, I gotta go, man. See ya.
All right, bye.